Hi everyone, I've decided to do my presentation on crime and criminal justice, more specifically prisons and the effectiveness of their rehabilitation programs. According to the papal text on page 397, prison rehab programs came under scrutiny in the early 60s. Studies were comprised about the effectiveness of a prison's treatment program by Bailey in 1966 and another in 1974 by Martinson. The results in these studies and many others like them at the time showed that the programs didn't seem to be working. According to these studies, once a person was in prison for a crime, they were over 50% more likely to commit a second crime. According to the papal text on 398, prisons weren't meant to rehabilitate, just to house the guilty until their sentence is served. Not a large amount of time and money went into getting the inmate ready to re-enter society or to live a productive life. Another article written by Joshua A. Jones called A Multi-State Analysis of Correctional Boot Camp Outcomes, Identifying Vocational Rehabilitation as a Complement to Shock Incarceration. It explains the different rehabilitation strategies that have been used over the years versus placing an individual in a correctional facility for a short period of time to shock them into basically not doing it again. Many of the programs described in the articles, such as boot camp, house arrest, and inmate vocational training or rehabilitation, did just about the same as placing an individual in a correctional facility. The percentage of committing a second crime was equal to and sometimes more than the rate of the incarcerated group. However, the article also discusses that the overcrowding of prisons in the United States and how these programs help to alleviate the stress caused by having a large prison population. The article goes on to state that oftentimes these programs are shorter and can reduce an offender's sentence by about a year on average. That added with the fact that the participants in these other services didn't do any worse than the offenders placed in correctional facilities with regard to offending, I'd say that makes it a success even from a fiscal standpoint. In the final article I read was written by Etienne Benison, called Rehabilitate or Punish, on the American Psychological Association webpage. The author notes that there is a 15 to 20% of the prison population with mental illnesses. This, according to the author, is because the community health movement to close state-funded mental facilities such as institutions and hospitals. With the closing of these facilities, the mentally ill have fallen through the cracks and ended up in correctional facilities that aren't equipped to handle their needs. Prisons weren't meant to counsel the mentally ill. They are meant to house criminals. This, to me, is the crux of our problem with regard to rehabilitation within the prison system. The human rights movement seemed to have swept through without due regard to what would happen to the people who obviously can't make decisions for themselves due to their mental illnesses. As a parent, I would do everything in my power to keep from placing my child in an institution. However, that is not how the rest of the world works. The mental hospitals and institutions of the past are long gone, but it may be worth our while to revisit the possibility of bringing them back. If we can house criminals and the mentally ill separately and in a dignified manner, it would go a long way to helping to resolve our overcrowding problem as well as being able to focus on what each group needs to become a functioning member of society.